word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we are going to be talking about the eternal Sersi. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this character to hold an intelligent conversation about them, plus be ready for their upcoming debut in the Marvel's Eternals movie. We're going to talk about all that and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I post new videos throughout the week, plus live stream every Saturday, so that way you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy the video, I humbly ask that you Hulk smash that like button because it really helps the channel out. That said, let's ponder the question, who is the eternal Sersi? Sersi first appeared in Eternals #3 in 1976 and was created by the legendary Jack Kirby. Sersi possesses all the powers of an average Eternal: near immortality, cosmic energy projection, flight, teleportation, telepathy, telekinesis, transmutation of organic and inorganic matter, conjuring of illusions, a regenerative healing factor, superhuman strength, durability, speed, stamina, reflexes, and agility. Sersi's real claim to fame is her ability to transmute virtually any matter, organic or inorganic, into practically anything she desires. Other Eternals have the capacity to transmute matter similar to Sersi, but she is the most powerful Eternal when it comes to transmutation. No Eternal who has ever lived has been as skilled at it as she is, and though this isn't anything to write home about in terms of how she uses her abilities, she has become a very talented fashion designer with the aid of her powers, using them to create styles and designs that are otherworldly. That said, her transmutation abilities are really only limited by her imagination. Sersi is known as one of the more sensual and romantics of the Eternals. While many Eternals over their long lives have bedded many humans in their lifetime, Sersi is one of the few who has bedded not just humans, but even other Eternals. It is often posited that Sprite is the only straight male among their fellow Eternals that Sersi has never slept with, and likely only because Sprite has the body of a child. She also had a centuries-long relationship with the character Makari, one that has been on again and off again for as long as they've been alive. They're no longer together now, mostly due to them cheating on one another, but also due to their boredom with being in love with each other. Another character Sersi had a major connection to was Dane Whitman, the Black Knight. Dane became Sersi's Gan Josin, a person who is soul-bound to an Eternal and able to join them in the Unimind. This was due to her reluctance to participate in the Eternal's ritual of killing those who suffered from what is called Mod Weary, or in layman's terms, eternal madness, which she was in fact afflicted by. That said, during the same time, Dane was more interested in the inhuman crystal, despite having a mutual attraction to Sersi. Speaking of Dane Whitman, Sersi suffered this eternal madness thanks to an alternate reality version of Dane, a man known as Proctor, who became obsessed with Sersi so much that he made it his life's mission to kill multiple Sersis across the multiverse. Another thing of note about this particular time in Sersi's publication history is that while under the effects of eternal madness, she became very aggressive to the point that she was more than willing to kill any enemy, even for the slightest of reasons. This would end up plaguing Sersi for well over several issues of her run in the Avengers, before eventually it drove her completely mad. She became a liability to her team, and more importantly, it put her relationship, such as it was, with Dane Whitman at great peril. Eventually, once the Avengers were able to defeat the villainous character Proctor, Sersi did ultimately resign herself to the fate that her fellow Eternals felt was the only way to cure her of eternal madness, and that was to be put to death. This would ultimately not happen. A watcher by the name of Ute, who hails from Earth 374, which is where Proctor is from, sacrificed himself to undo all the changes to Earth 616 that were the direct result of Proctor's meddling. Also, as a last act of good faith, created a portal that would lead to some other world or reality where Sersi could go and could ultimately get better better and no longer be a danger to her friends and family. Dane would ultimately follow along with her. Now, where this portal led was it took them to the Ultraverse. This would set up another Avengers story arc later down the road when the Avengers and Ultraforce would end up teaming up in a bid to defeat the Asgardian Loki after he had combined the sentient power of all the Infinity Stones. When Sersi and Dane had returned from the Ultraverse, they went their separate ways. Sersi is one of the only Eternals to become an active member of the Avengers up until this point. The other Eternal of note being Gilgamesh, though his time as Avenger was, as Carter would like to say, wet bread. During the Eternals' own personal civil war between Ikaris and Druig, Sersi's relationship with Makkari became even more strained due to her worrying about him being manipulated by the Celestials. In the end, Makkari was murdered by the Eternal Gilgamesh, and with the machine unable to resurrect Makkari at the time, Sersi used her powers to transmute her own body into a perfect replica of Makkari's. This was how she was able to communicate with the Celestials as Makkari had before her and were able to defeat the Horde. Sersi has gone by many names as Eternals are wont to do. She has been known as the character Mesmer, Sorceress, and Sylvia Sersi. Sersi's namesake is derivative of the Greek goddess, also known as Sersi, but spelled C-I-R-C-E. Gemma Chan, who many of you may know from Crazy Rich Asians, Let Them All Talk, the TV series Humans, and another MCU film, Captain Marvel, will play Sersi in the upcoming MCU film, Marvel's The Eternals. Interesting sidebar to this, Gemma Chan is the only cast member of Eternals to appear in the MCU prior to the Eternals film thanks to her turn as Dr. Minerva in Captain Marvel. The only other actor to play two different characters in separate MCU properties is Michelle Yeoh, who briefly played Alita Ogord in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and then later Ying Nan in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Another thing of note, as mentioned in the video for Ikaris, the characters Sersi and Ikaris are apparently romantically linked to one another in the MCU film, or at least in the past they were romantically linked but estranged in modern times, at least in terms of the movie. This is not something that necessarily hasn't happened in the comics, but interesting considering that Dane Whitman, aka the Black Knight, is also cast in the movie, being played by actor Kit Harington, a former Game of Thrones co-star of Richard Madden, having both played brothers in the Stark family. Couple that with Sersi and Dane's attraction to one another in the comics, their apparent dating in the MCU film, as well as Sersi's, quotey fingers, free-spirited nature and embracing a free love, and it could make for some interesting memes and storytelling. I would also be curious to know that considering Sersi and Makkari's relationship in the comics, part of me is curious as to whether or not the MCU is going to pursue this relationship in any fashion, especially when you consider the fact that in the MCU, Makkari is not a male character, but a female character. Beyond the upcoming movie, the only other media that Sersi has appeared in outside of comics is the animated comic Marvel Knights Eternals, voiced by Kelly Sheridan. That said, Sersi is easily the most popular member of the Eternals. She's the one who had the longest Avengers run out of the two that were Avengers, and honestly, probably the one character who comes to most people's minds, at least before the Eternals movie was announced. She was probably the one character that popped in people's heads whenever you thought about the Eternals. Most people never really thought about many of the other characters, maybe, Ikaris, possibly, but even that was probably a stretch. All that aside, I'm interested to see how Gemma Chan is going to portray this character in the MCU, and even more curious to know if she's still gonna maintain her portrayal of Dr. Minerva should that character return for any future Captain Marvel related movies. But that's neither here nor there. All that aside, it's gonna be very interesting to have a character like her around, considering the level of power that she has. And yes, the Eternals in the MCU are gonna be a little bit more muted in terms of power levels in the movies versus what they are in the comics, but once again, they are gonna be able to do things, and more specifically Sersi is gonna be able to do things that up to this point we've only seen characters like Doctor Strange or Thanos do. Anyways, tune in next time where I'll be talking about the Eternals character Thena, who's going to be played by Angelina Jolie in the upcoming movie. If you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share it all over the internet and with all your friends so they'll know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the Eternal Sersi. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought about the character Sersi. Have you always known about her, or are you today years old finding out about her? Keep it plus ultra. outro and sound off in the comments.